Our next facilitator, moderator extraordinaire is Dr. Michael Mann. He is our vice president on our board of directors, and we're so thrilled to have you here today leading this discussion. So I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Jeannie and Casey. Appreciate you guys. Welcome to the second section of today's virtual conference. Clearly, we've talked a lot about at the first third of the day around how to keep all of the members of our school community physically safe and physically healthy. I think we're going to transition to, or I know what we're going to transition to in this next period is addressing the same question around emotional health and social wealth and our mental well-being, again, for our students, but also for all members of the school community, including faculty, staff, anyone serving students in any way in schools. We are very, very lucky today to be able to begin with Dr. Ken Ginsburg as our main presenter for this section. I'll give you a brief introduction. There you can read a more extended description of his background on our website. But Dr. Ginsburg practices adolescent medicine at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and is a professor of pediatrics at the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. He's the founding director of the Center for Parent and Teen Communications, has authored 2 books related to resilience, and also put together a multimedia toolkit for the American Academy of Pediatrics related to resilience, and also has consulted with various national organizations about how to create environments in which young people are able to thrive. Dr. Ginsburg, we're very, very happy to have you today, and we really look forward to hearing from you during this next section.
Thank you so much. It is genuinely an honor to be here, and thank you, Dr. Mann, for the introduction. Today we're going to be talking about building resilience and coping skills in these uncertain times. And so far we've talked about students, staff, and teachers, but I think it's really important that we not separate that from parents and all of the people in young people's lives. So I begin every presentation with this young man. He is the screensaver on my computer. I was surfing the internet one day, and this kid grabbed me with his smile, and he grabbed me with the crinkles between his eyes. I have identical girls, only one of them has crinkles, and they mean the world to me. When I look at this boy, I see hope, I see possibility, I see like unabashed joy. This boy is on a refugee boat. This boy has just been picked up by the Italian Navy on a boat that was sinking. Now, I don't know what it is in the last couple years of his life that made his parents get on a boat that was not seaworthy, but I know it had something to do with making his life better. But I do definitively know what happened in the last 2 hours. And in the last 2 hours, this young man heard screaming and terror. People were cold, people were wet, people thought they were going to die. And yet, talk about uncertainty. It wasn't even certain that the boat would make it to shore, right? And yet this boy looks okay. What this picture is, in fact, is the best picture I know of resilience. Because it not only shows a young man who's resilient, it also tells you why, what it is that makes kids okay. And the answer is when they co-regulate with adults, when the adults believe in them, when the adults are centered around them. That's what this picture tells you. And I'm not very good at math, right? But I count 3 adults here. So even if I assume that one is a mommy and one is a daddy, what this picture also tells me is that when mommy and daddies are available, the rest of us are additive. And when mommies and daddies are not available, the rest of us become critical. As kids come back to school, we have to recognize that youth are going to be returning, and you know this better than I do, with disparities that are heightened. But what we also have to realize is that they've had a near universal experience of being painted as a source of many problems. I care deeply about cultural narrative and how we paint teenagers, because I know that teenagers live up or down to how we paint them and the expectations we hold for them. And teenagers have taken a beating since coronavirus began, as being selfish, as being hard to control, and all of these other issues. And that is something that is a big issue for us to be ready for. We also have to be ready to recognize that all kids are going to be returning with a decreased sense of security. But for those kids who are deserving of our most focused attention, because they've had the hardest life, the impact may be magnified. And focusing for a minute on those kids, the kids who have had the hardest lives, and when we consider what it is we can do to make them feel secure, we have to understand what is happening. We have to understand that this is actually a model, a moment that we can be aspirational, where we can actually remodel brains. So let's think about it and what we know about brain pathways. Your brain pathway is formed when you're born in terms of your sense of security or not. You're an infant and you make a noise. You make a noise. And your mother recognizes that you are in need of nourishment or nurturance, and she takes out a breast. And when that happens repeatedly over and over again, a brain pathway is actually forged. And that brain pathway says, I have a need and it's likely to get met. But if for one reason or another, your mother is not able to give you what you need in the moment, then what do? You cry. And if that is all that it takes to get your mother's attention, and it happens over and over again, and you learn that in order to get attention, you need to cry to be relatively reactive, then your brain pathways will be set down and it will say, when I'm in trouble, I need to cry. But suppose your mother still doesn't give you what you need in terms of nourishment or nurturance. What's the next thing you do? You scream. And when that happens over and over again, your brain pathways get set down that say that in order for me to get what I want, I have to be highly reactive. I have to scream. And suppose you still don't get the attention that you need. Then what do? You give up and you self-stimulate. You're not going to get fed, so you begin learning to nurture yourself by sucking on your fingers. And over time, when that happens repeatedly, you learn that you have little value, little agency, little control, and you've got to do whatever you can. And these patterns get repeated throughout childhood and adolescence. So what do we do for those kids who need us the most? Here's the great news, guys. Adolescence is an astounding time of remodeling of the brain. 0 to 3 in adolescence are the times you can remodel the brain. So what do? When kids are at the limits, at the edges of this puzzle that I call who am I, and they are really struggling, what do? We do the opposite of what they expect repeatedly. And when we do that, we are not only building nurturance or giving nurturance in the minute and building resilience and coping skills in the moment, but we are actually reshaping the brain and therefore the future of that child. So for a child who does not expect to get nurturance, we give it proactively. For a child who has learned that their emotions are not validated, that they are not heard, we listen in advance and we celebrate and we elevate their emotions. And when that happens over and over again, we actually change kids. So as we prepare for this school year where we have more kids, greater disparities, more stress and uniform stress, it is the time to know that doubling down is not only about getting through the moment, but it is actually for some kids doing the opposite of what their brains have grown to expect. We create profoundly safe, nurturing environments and say, I got you. You're safe here. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to validate you. And when we do that over and over again, not only are we coping, helping kids cope, we are changing them. Remember, the resilience is most commonly defined as the ability to overcome adversity, the capacity to bounce back. Certainly, it's about surviving difficult times, but it's also about thriving in the very best of times. To understand resilience, you have to understand stress. To understand stress, you have to understand that we are all meat. We are prey, and we are designed to be able to escape this guy's great-great-great-grandpa. And if you don't believe me, think about what your body does when you're stressed. So here I am in my jungle chair. I smell a tiger. I know I need to jump and run. Where do I need the blood? I need the blood in my butt so I can jump and my legs so I can run. How do we know we're designed for this? That's what butterflies are. Butterflies is when the blood is leaving your belly to go to your butt so you can jump. Isn't that cool? All right, then your heart pumps fast, so you can pump that blood, and then you breathe fast, so you can oxygenate that blood. Your pupils get big, so you can see even if it's dark. You sweat, so you can cool off. But you know what else you can't do during times of maximal stress? You can't think, you can't plan, you can't strategize. Why? Because you're not supposed to turn the tiger and say, let's work it out. You're supposed to be running. And you know what else you can't do? You can't feel fully. You can't connect strategically. Why? Because you're not supposed to turn to the tiger and say, hey, I'd like to understand from your point of view why you want to eat me. So during times of maximal stress, it is hard to think, it is hard to plan, it is hard to settle. And that is when you're running from a tiger. But when you're running from a tiger, you know exactly where you're running from. In fact, we might be living through times that are much harder than tiger attacks. Because a tiger attack from a hormonal point of view is all about adrenaline. But what about when you don't know where the tiger is and you have to be ready to jump at any moment, at any time? You have to be hypervigilant to the entire environment. You need to keep your blood pressure high at all times, and your dominant hormone is cortisol, and cortisol is actually the hormone of stress that has the longest term behavioral and health problems. Look at this picture. This is the scariest picture in humanity. It's not the tiger. It's wondering where the tiger is. If you look right in the middle, he's sitting there. 2020 is a time of hidden tigers. It is this uncertainty that may be the greatest challenge to our sense of security, and we're living through it now. Coronavirus. This time is going to leave a generational mark on young people. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. They're going to be telling their great-grandchildren what they were doing in 2020. But to think that we don't have an ability to impact the message that it sends, that it leaves, is naive. And that's what this talk is about, shaping that impact, right? A good place to start is to have empathy and understanding rather than shaming or vilifying. If we shame or we vilify the teenagers and the adolescents right now, they're not going to listen to a word that we're going to say. They're going to create their own subcultures more than baseline. We have to understand, rather than just condemning them for being difficult to control, we, who are the child advocates in America, have to make it really clear why biologically and from a brain science point of view and developmentally, this time is particularly hard for adolescents, right? Your job is to have increasing independence. Your job is to stretch limits, to experiment, to test. And now we are saying, do exactly what we say, or you're putting people's lives in risk. It is biologically against the way they think. Biologically, their brains, their reward centers go off when they are with friends, right? That's how you get grandchildren eventually. It's how they are designed. So when we are keeping them from friends, it is harder than it is for adults. And that kind of empathy and understanding is how to draw them in, maximize their impact, and continue to hold our impact and continue to hold them to high expectations. Simultaneously, we have the racial justice movement, a movement that is an awakening for many and an affirmation of reality, not an awakening at all for too many. And the question is, how can we raise a generation of future adults who are going to build us a better world? When we're thinking about resilience and we're thinking about coping, which is almost the same in this context, the difference is I think about coping in the moment, and I think of resilience as coping skills that will carry through for the rest of your life. What we have to understand is that every earned emotion that a young person has or that an adult has, the kind of emotions that are not denied or set aside, creates a real opportunity for building resilience. And again, in our homes, in our schools, from all adults, because kids build resilience through practice and observation. So when adults, we shouldn't be separating, this is what you do for the kid, this is what we do for us, because it is a strategic act of good adulting, parenting, or teaching when we show what we are doing to go through uncertain times ourselves. And also modeling how we work through complexity, such as equity and racial injustice, is the way to build thinkers and problem solvers. Young people readjusting at school, remember, I started the talk by saying this, they need more adults than just educators, all right? So we should be partnering with our parents immediately. In fact, we should have started 4 or 5 months ago. When you get these PowerPoints, if you click on this little book, you will get directly to an open access chapter that is basically the talk I'm giving you. For all parents, you can give it to everybody for free, okay? And it is about navigating uncertain times. It's about these emotions that we have and then matching it to the resilience lesson that we are able to communicate to our kids by coping with it in the moment. The first is every adult in the world, but certainly parents, feel like they're failing, right? You're juggling so many things that you haven't had to juggle before, right? And now you're worried about illness and safety of your community, and you're worried about maintaining your job and maintaining your economic status, and you're worried about your kid's school and making sure that everybody's dropping balls, right? Which is allowing us to prioritize which balls stay in the air, and that's a major resilience skill we're going to talk about in a minute. But it also allows us to model self-compassion. Being forgiving, for perfection is never an option, but for some reason, many adults think that it is when it comes to parenting. It's never been an option. But now we have the opportunity for all the adults to really model self-forgiveness and self-compassion, to catch our thoughts. Every time we say, I should have done this, I better do this, if I don't, all of those catastrophic thoughts, which we're going to come back to, we remind ourselves that this is our head taking us to an unhealthy place. We look at the balls that we're juggling, we look at some of them there on the ground, and we give ourselves permission to leave them there. When you don't know how you feel, it's because you have a swirl of emotions. Probably the most important thing that we can do, or among the most important things we can do to build resilient skills in our kids, is to allow them to honor, name, elevate, and release their emotions after processing them. This is an amazing opportunity to really admit what we feel, rather than stick with some of those incredibly toxic messages that say strong people make it through, right? Or men don't experience these feelings, these incredibly toxic feelings. This is an opportunity where everybody is having a common experience, and we're going to continue to talk about this, but elevating those emotions. When you want to pull your hair out because so many things in the world are chaotic, this is an amazing time to demonstrate the importance of creating safe havens within our homes and absolutely our schools. Precisely because things are so hard right now in the world is why we create peace in our homes and peace in our schools. And we talk about it, and we talk about the intentionality with which we are doing this. Right? It is not random. It's not that I've become nicer. It's not that you don't drive me crazy sometimes. It's that when we create peace in this space, it allows us to deal with other things. I will be gentler. I will be more forgiving. I will be more compassionate. I'm going to ask you to do the same for me. Next, I need a timeout, right? So for adults, when adults are going to need to settle themselves, whether these are parents or whether these are teachers, whether these are classroom aides, you calm yourself before you can be a calming presence for others. This is a major resilience skill that will help your kids cope when they're in their 80s, 90s, and 120s. Our job is to create a calmness amidst a chaotic reality. That's co-regulation. It's when you borrow someone else's emotions. If you're not sure what co-regulation is, look at it this way. You're on an airplane. There's turbulence. What do you do to figure out if you're safe? You look at the flight attendants. And if they're still serving snack mix, you're cool, right? It's that you're borrowing other people's emotions. But self-regulation is a skill to be developed. One of the biggest mistakes you can think is that self-regulation is a character skill. It's something you got or you don't, or it's a sign of weakness. No, it's a skill to be developed. And for kids who've been underparented or have grown up in a chaotic reality, they haven't learned those skills. We know how to teach them in schools to some degree, all right? So we can develop those skills. Who do we want to be? It really depends on the kids and their age. When kids are little and really they borrow their calm entirely from knowing that you're okay, you should just be chill. And you should leave the room and figure out how to get yourself to chill, but you want to look like the duck that's just gliding on the water. Because when you do, that kid feels really secure. But when kids are a little bit older, and most certainly when they're adolescents, don't look like this guy. You're going to look like you're faking it. And you're going to completely miss the opportunity to teach. Be this guy, the guy who's hanging out on the water and the guy who is floating pretty nicely. But the reason is because his little feet are underneath paddling like crazy. That's how we teach. We teach how incredibly intentional we are being and how hard work it takes to stay regulated. That is how we pass along resilience. We say, I'm taking a break now. I'm going to go for a run. You're asking me a question I can't answer because I'm not thinking clearly. When I go home, go for a run, take a shower. I'm going to have a great answer for you tomorrow. You give them the information. This is how kids learn. Next, my mind feels out of control. This is a great opportunity to talk about how the body and the mind are connected. If we're going to be able to process our emotions, the first thing we got to do is run from the tiger, right? We got to run from the tiger because as long as you have adrenaline going through your body, you feel like there's a tiger chasing your butt. That's what adrenaline is. It's a tiger chasing my butt hormones. When you run, what you communicate very clearly to your body hormonally is, I've escaped the tiger. When you don't exercise and times are going crazy, then what you communicate to your body is, the tiger could be there, could be there, could be anywhere. I don't know, but I'm standing still. But after you run, or if you're in a classroom and don't have the opportunity to run, then we also look at biology and we teach kids how to become calm. Let's get back to that running from the tiger stance. Two things we know. There are two nervous systems in your body, kids. There is the voluntary system, which says, I choose to talk, I choose to turn, I choose to wave. And there's the involuntary system, which says, I'm dilating, I'm beating, I'm digesting. Right? And within the involuntary system, there are two parallel halves. I'm chilling, and there's a tiger chasing my butt. They're parallel because only one can work or the other. What if we could flip the switch from the tiger chasing my butt system over to the I'm chilling system? Then everything changes, including your ability to think, plan, strategize, feel, and connect. So the question is whether or not we have that switch. And we do. Let's go back. What can you do? You have to do the opposite of what you do when you're stressed. Can you take the blood from your legs and your butt back to your belly? No, can't be the switch. Sweat into your pits? Can't be the switch. The only thing you can control is breathe. Whether you've got a classroom of 5-year-olds and you teach them to blow bubbles, or a classroom of 12-year-olds that you teach yoga and deep meditative breathing, you teach them how to control their minds. I keep thinking about the worst case scenario. Everybody does, especially during times of uncertainty, because uncertainty is so scary that what we do is we create a new certainty. And it is often the worst case scenario. We just go, if this happens, then this will happen, and then this will happen, and then this will happen. So we do it as human beings because the tiger lurking in the grass is so scary that we choose to unmask the tiger and just pretend it's right in front of us. But that means you're always thinking and never strategizing. You catch your thoughts. Cognitive Behavioral Therapy 101. I should, I'm better, I better, I don't. When this happens, this will happen, and this will happen, and this will happen. We teach kids to catch their thoughts and remind themselves where reality is so that they can think again, plan again, and connect again. I feel helpless. So many people do. Figure out what you can do. Resilience 101. If you begin looking at problems as a mountain and say, I can never get to the top, I can never go around it, you fall at the base. And when you fall at the base, you feel powerless. You lose any sense of agency. But when you understand that every mountain is a series of hills piled on top of each other, then all you have to do is step up on that first hill. And when you step up on that first hill, figuring out what you can do, then you begin to master the problem. Major coping skill now, lifelong resilience skill. I can't do everything. Of course not. You're juggling those balls in the air. Some of them are dropping. Look at them. Leave some on the ground. Major resilience skill. I am really aspirational about this time, guys. I'm really aspirational because I think we've been juggling a lot of balls and pretending a lot of things mattered that never did. Imagine now if as a society, we begin thinking about what matters most, which by the way, I'm getting to. All right. I'm so disappointed. Of course you are. But find joy every single day. Give service. And what you're going to find, one of the best ways of finding joy is to have a sense of purpose in your life. And when you have a sense of purpose in your life, you can get through almost anything. How do you gain that sense of purpose? In my lifetime, there has not been another time where everything that is going wrong in society is the vulnerable people are most vulnerable, which means that we can really give service and therefore understand how much we matter, right? It is an amazing opportunity to be able to change the world for kids. Why does this matter so much? The ultimate act of resilience is when you turn to another human being and you say, brother, I need a hand. That's who survives. It's the people who can connect. What is it that allows you to reach? It is knowing that there's no pity on the other end. If you believe there's pity on the other end, if I'm reaching out to Mike, and Mike is, and I'm looking at him and I'm thinking that he is pitying me, he's looking down at me, I'm not reaching, particularly man to man. But if I've had the experience of giving, I learn that it feels good, that it gives me joy, it gives me meaning. And what that means is that when it's someone else's turn, when it's my turn, and it's someone else's turn to give, I can do so without shame or stigma. I had so many plans that aren't working out. Welcome to 2020. Literally, the definition of resilience is when you can't change things, adapt, right? We teach this in our classrooms. I hope also, getting back to being aspirational, this is a time, if you go back far in history, and by that I mean February, and you looked at all the great heroes were the great athletes and the good-looking people and the super rich people and the really talented actors and actresses. And I'm not saying those people aren't cool. What I'm saying is we suddenly realize who the real heroes are. The real heroes are the people who are still delivering the mail, keeping the grocery stores open, the frontline healthcare people, and teachers. And what that means is this is an opportunity to really reframe who the heroes are. The reason why I think that this is such an amazing opportunity is because I want every kid to launch into adulthood feeling their potential to be a hero. The old model had them bound for failure. This model allows everybody who gives back to humanity to feel like a hero. Question everybody's asking. As a doctor, I can't go anywhere without this question being asked to me. It's asked to me by email, on the phone, by text. And this is an opportunity to build a, my answers, I don't know, but I trust the people are working really hard to figure it out. Resolve, major resilience skill. Another question that everybody's asking, will things ever be the same? And I'm gonna give you an answer that may sound odd, but I'm gonna tell you I hope not. Because everything that has been underscored now were things that were always hiding in the open. It is not a mystery to me that the most vulnerable people and the populations, communities of color that have endured hundreds of years of oppression are more vulnerable. It is not a surprise to me one bit. I've been saying it for at least 25 years. Now every public health or every major health organization in the country has stated that racism is a public health problem. I hope we never go back. That is what gives me hope. Next, this unsettling time is going to leave a generational mark in young people. I began by saying that. Let's think about what we want it to be and let's manipulate it. Because let's look at the two great simultaneous crises. If you add the third being economics, but an understanding of racial equity, our sense of physical vulnerability. What's happening is that, especially the coronavirus was all about separation, right? The emotion is I'm missing my family and friends. Both issues are making people feel vulnerable, frightened, and insecure, right? But I want you to imagine something. Imagine now what it's going to be like when kids do get back to school, when we figure out how to do it safely, and kids do get back to school and they're able to learn next to their friends. Imagine now how much more special that will be. Imagine when they can go to their places of worship safely. Imagine what it will be like when all kids can hug their grandparents again. One of the wrong things in our society is how we haven't honored and venerated our elders in the way that other communities and some of our communities within America do. This is an opportunity for a reboot, and it's all about relationships. You know what I hope the lesson from this era is? That relationships strengthen us. So above all, if this generation can walk away understanding the power and the primacy of human connection as the thing that builds resilience, as the thing that enables you to cope, we will have a better world. I'm going to read you a fable that I wrote that is a takeoff on Aesop's fable of the sticks. A young person was feeling frustrated, angry, and feeling powerless, close to their breaking point. Sometimes this showed through words spoken or screamed, sometimes through flowing tears, and most often through silence. A loving adult approached and said, I know these moments are frightening, and sometimes it feels as if we have no control over our lives. Sometimes it even feels as though we will break, like a stick about to snap. The adult then challenges the youth to break a stick laying on the ground. The young person picks it up and easily breaks it in two, relating to its fragility. The caring adult then gathers several sticks, ties them together, and hands them to the child. Go ahead and try to break the sticks now. The young person tries and can barely even get them to bend. The adult kindly explains, each of those sticks by themselves can easily break, but when they're joined with each other's, they become stronger than if we added all of their individual strengths together. We are like a bundle of sticks. Each of us can be fragile at any moment, but together we are stronger. In moments where we feel most vulnerable, we gather people around us to draw from their strengths. In time, you will take this lesson and lend your strength to others. If our generation hears this message, be fragile, be vulnerable, feel, don't put it away. But when you do feel, draw others around you and take turns. When other people are feeling, sometimes you're going to be the one who's going to get them through. Next, for those of you who know the 7 C's model that I use or that I borrowed from the Youth Development Movement and expanded upon in my works, control is one of the other C's. This is a core to being trauma sensitive. Remember that when people have been traumatized, what it means is that they've lost control over the most, sometimes over the sanctity of their body, over knowing when they were safe, whether they're going to be judged, whether they're going to be physically, emotionally, or morally safe. I meant to say mentally, not morally. So what are the main things? So I have a comprehensive trauma sensitive model that is in reaching teens. And one of the core things is giving control back to people from whom control has been taken away. Right now, you're going to be welcoming kids back to school who have all lost control, who have all had this common shared trauma. Giving them control, that means giving them choices of any kind, doing as few adult-driven top-down things and more things that bubble up is going to be healing for kids who haven't had control. Control is also a central benefit of stress management skills. Remember, stress is there. Stress makes you incredibly uncomfortable, makes you sweat, it makes you smell, it makes you not be able to think clearly. It makes you so uncomfortable, you gotta cope. That's what we're talking about. But when you cope, you take specific actions. I've just talked about really resilient skills on a broad level, cognitively and emotionally, that help you cope. But everything you fear in kids are the negative coping strategies, the easy, quick fixes, not the ones where you have to think and feel and connect, but the easy ones like cutting and starving and having sex out of the context of a relationship, punching someone in the face, doing drugs and alcohol. These are your quick, easy fixes. They also help you cope. They work magnificently. But remember this. Remember that whenever you hear the word quick in the context of any behavior, but especially coping, you should be thinking addictive. On the other hand, when we can make it so that we raise kids with a wide repertoire of positive coping strategies, then and we have a kid who has engaged in negative coping strategies. We ask them what they're getting out of it. We know what the answer is going to be. We congratulate them for coming up with anything. We invite them in a healing process to move towards positive coping strategies. We have done good. When we work with our kindergartners, our second graders, and our seniors to develop in them a wide repertoire of positive coping strategies, what we are doing is creating a path of least resistance. So when life gets hard, and it will, whether it's 2020 or 2090, these kids will have a wide repertoire of positive coping strategies that are harder to go to, but that will lead to relief. I want to show you right now something that you can put on all of your websites. You can give to everybody for free immediately today. This is from the Center for Parent and Teen Communication. This is my center. This is a multi-million-dollar center that is designed to change the way people think about kids and to strengthen family connections. The bottom line being that what normally happens is if you Google as a parent, how do I talk to my kid? The things you're most likely to get are things with the word survival in it. Survival guide. And if you Google, how do I talk to my kids? You're most likely to, and again, you will have the link to this. You're going to go and you're going to find things that are most likely to be racially biased. In other words, white middle class. When you do that, you undermine other cultures. We have paid I'm sure we're not perfect, but with a lot of consultation and multicultural writing, we try very hard to not do those two things. This is a very comprehensive website with films and quizzes and articles ranging from 100 words to 2,500 words, right? We teach a lot. I want to focus on two things that are relevant to this conversation today. First, under health and prevention, we have supporting emotional health. The article I want you to be able to do, and you can subscribe to this. This will get you updates all the time. We will never ask you for money. Don't worry about it. Preparing teens to seek professional help. I would love all of you as school nurses, as public health experts, and as parents to see this article. This is an article that gives kids the words that they need to hear to understand the extent to which this is a strength-based process, right? I'll tell you what would have saved why I didn't die, but when I was 17 and I was deeply, deeply, deeply depressed 41 years ago, what I can tell you is what I needed to hear more than anything was this: how strong feelings now lead to a strong adulthood later. If someone told me that the depth and breadth of my emotions that I considered emasculine and wondered how I could handle it long term, and therefore thought that it probably wasn't worth living, if someone had told me that those same things would build my career, make me a better father, make me a better husband, make me a better lover, make me a better boss, make me a better colleague, it's exactly what I needed to hear. This article is about all of this, all right? It is about understanding the help that professional people can give you. But here's what I want to show you right now. For teens, there are a lot of articles on how to talk to kids, but this stress management plan, which is totally in keeping. So what I didn't do, I implied a lot of them, but I didn't give you stress management plan 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm giving it to you right now, right? This stress management plan is written by teenagers for teenagers. It's based on my work, which I am not a very bright guy, but I'm a translator who takes the best of science and puts it out in books to make it practical to use. This tells teenagers how to build a stress management plan. They can go through this site and spend 3 hours on it if they want. There are many, they can link out, they can go to many, many films. Most kids don't. Most kids might read this page that's going to explain what they're going to do. Most kids go right to starting the plan. We will walk you through an 11-step plan. You will put in your name and your email address, right? We will walk you through all of these different concepts, and some things will be free answers, like what do I treat like a real tiger? And then why isn't it a real threat? And they can put it down and then add other things, right? From here, why is this problem temporary? What are the good things in my life? Cognitive reframing, one of the best words is yet. I haven't made any friends because I haven't made any friends yet. I'm not good at chemistry means I'm not good at chemistry yet. from here, for lack of time, I'm not going to walk you through it, but it's 11 steps. It will from there teach you the cognitive skills of breaking mountains into hills, avoiding other problems, letting go of others, and focusing your energies on where you can. It'll talk about exercise, sleep, nutrition, relaxation. From there, it'll take you to emotional strategies that will allow you to release or avoid problems altogether. Because if you want to avoid drugs, right, it's not just about releasing your emotions and talking about them. It is also about just escaping entirely. Drugs are used by people not who want to process, but who want to escape. So a much better strategy is reading a book. Reading a book is the way to visualize the panorama, smell the smells, feel the feelings, right? Then you escape. But then the next strategy is going to be about processing and releasing emotions. And the final one is giving to your community so you can build a sense of meaning and purpose in your life. I'm ready to open it up to the other group. Let me just tell you what these resources are. I'm not a book salesman. I'm a youth advocate who creates things so that other people can be the kind of adults that young people deserve in their life. The two things on the right are books, Building Resilience in Children and Teens. If you get it, make sure you get the 4th edition. The 3rd edition is what comes up on Amazon, and it's breaking my heart. So you would have to ask for the 4th edition for you to get to the right one. Reaching Teens, for those of you, American School Health Association knows this well. Most of you have used the 3rd edition. This one's been out only for 2 weeks. It is a very big improvement. It's put out by the American Academy of Pediatrics, but it is absolutely interdisciplinary. You approach it electronically from one of 7 settings: healthcare, educational, foster care, juvenile justice, substance use, sports and physical recreation, or homeless services. And you have an entirely different experience with this extremely expanded toolkit. So it's much bigger, but everybody will do much less. So I'm out of time, and it's time for me to shut up and for you to hear from the wonderful panelists.
Well, please don't describe it that way. I don't think any of us want you to shut up. That was amazing. Judging from the, especially from the comments in the chat. I mean, I know I got a lot out of it, and I'm a pretty tough customer, but I can clearly see that so many people who are present got a lot out of your presentation as well. And so thank you so much, Ken, Dr. Ginsburg, for joining us and for your presentation.